Oh, is he actually coming? Because he's sending screenshots of Enshrouded in our chat. Oh, why is Bulbasaur turned around?
I know. What the heck's that about?
I don't know.
The Pal World episode must have been rowdy last
Yeah,
week.
he got offended. We were talking about Pal World, not Pokemon.
It's like I don't even want to look at this nonsense. It's gross.
I need to find my little one that's exactly like this, but it's like this big. It's like somewhere in my garage in some box.
Yeah, you could probably really trick our mind with that one.
Put it back there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like, are those the same size Bulbasaurs, but just different perspective? What's going on here? You ready to get going?
I'm ready to
let's
roll.
go. Now that our producer's here. He waves from the background. He didn't know we were waiting on him this whole time. But yeah. 3, 2. Welcome to the Showboys Podcast. I'm your host, Pixel Nick. You just listened to that awesome intro made by our producer, Dad. Dad, shout out from the back. We can't hear you, but we know you're
Tiger
there.
Woods fist pumping back there.
He's so excited. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Joining with me is wonderful hosts, Michael and Chadwick III. Chad, how are you tonight?
I'm great. Yeah,
Glad you're here.
Doing great. I'm here.
Work's treating you well?
Work's treating me okay. Yeah. I can't complain. So slowly adjusted.
Slowly adjusting.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm starting to get EDOs too. So I'm like periodically getting 5 days off in a row, which will be super nice to have a little bit of a break.
Wow.
You could record like a whole companion series in that time.
I could.
Like Brady,
speaking of which, I do have to tell the story the other day. So Brady and I are starting to watch Jujutsu Kaisen, which is an anime. The second season came out. And he's like, man, I wish we could watch Demon Slayer. I was like, it's going to be a while until we watch season 4 of Demon Slayer. He's like, pretty sure it's coming out in March. I'm like, no, it's not coming out in March. There's no way. We just did a companion series on it last year. There's no way it's coming out that quickly. Look it up. There's a movie coming out at the end of February, and almost certainly the new season's coming out in March. I'm like, wow, you were right. He's like, I tried to tell you. We like argued back and forth about it. So
you should know better than to argue with him about.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I should have learned my lesson by now. Yeah.
He's like dumb boomer.
Yeah.
Mike, hilarious. How are you?
Good. I was getting a little concerned there, like being a host side piece this week. I was getting concerned that I still would not get asked how I'm doing this evening
because he skipped right over you.
Yeah. But I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to talk about this movie. Excited to hear what you guys think about it.
How was your Pal World episode last week?
It was really fun. We actually had a lot of sponsors last week, so go check it out. It was pretty great. There are tons of live ad reads. We're rolling in the dough. No, it was fun. It's good. Stream team joined me, and they Joe, actually all three of them. Who am I kidding? Have played about like 4 times as much Pal World as I have. So a wealth of knowledge in that episode about Pal World, so go check it out if you're into that game.
Okay, I don't have them all as friend lists, but I do have Bio, who has 70 hours played recently. You
that was actually 11. All yesterday.
All yesterday. That's crazy. Well, I'm glad you guys had fun. It's always nice to see the stream team show up and show out, throw down.
They came up, they took over, and Kumino and Civ got into an epic, like, at least 10-minute argument about, like, something, and it was compelling, funny, and then started to get awkward, and then I was like, okay, we just need to move on, or else we're going to be here for about, the entire length of Killers of the Flower Moon.
You and Joe are just sitting there quietly, and
Just like nervously, like Jordan Peele sweating gif looking at each other.
Is there about to be a crime?
Yeah.
Murder's about to happen.
Oh, and 2 times. So Biosiv's
2-time champion.
Twice. Biosiv. His real name is Yusuf. He said it's fine that I say it. And 2 times I asked him questions like,
he said it's fine that I say it. Thanks for prefacing that for us.
sometimes people like their real names being out there with their online handles and stuff. But twice I asked him a question, but the way I asked it, I was like, "What about you, Siv?" And I was like,
Get
almost
it?
said your name. And then he was like, "Oh, I don't care if you say my." Oh, I get it. You did almost say my.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But anyways, yeah.
Yusuf.
What's the background story about him changing his name though from Civ?
I
Is there
think
a reason?
You know, there is, but I don't remember it.
Okay.
Did he give it on the episode, or do we have to seek this out separately?
No, I think he said it somewhere in Discord, so it's probably buried at this point. So we might have to ask that, but there is a story behind it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of them, shout out our top tier patrons. Yusuf H.
That was also awkward. Shouting out our patrons, 2 of which were on the episode with me.
Yeah.
Joe is he's not a top tier patron anymore, but he is a patron.
He's the honorary.
Yeah, he's the honorary Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He was up there for a while. And obviously Bim. Shout out Bim.
Big Bim.
He sent me some Super Bowl squares pictures from the PLM bracket. Big upsets, big sad. I don't know. It looks like you weren't playing, Mike.
I wasn't, but our pal Ryan won about 300 bones.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did he get? He got 3 out of the 4.
That's what Tim said.
Oh my! Yeah, he sent me a screenshot. He got 2 of them. He must have got the final in there. That's ridiculous.
Also, a little life update on Bim. He used to be a big boy, but he's lost a lot of weight, and he's like getting ripped.
Whoa. Well, I know he's been like working out, or at least being healthier for quite a long time. But I've not physically seen him.
Me either, but apparently what he was, telling me in
Big
Discord.
Bim is now Slim Bim.
Yeah, Slim Bim with the big muscles. Apparently.
Whoa. Ripped Bim. All right, that's good. Right on, Bim.
Good job, Bim.
Didn't win no money though.
No, he didn't.
Big sad.
Way to kick him right back down.
Big sad.
Yeah, take those big muscles right not to the bank.
Yeah.
In other news, we have marches coming up, and definitely if you've been in our Discord, I don't know if we've really pushed this out on socials or not yet, but we might as well start
the
here.
official announcement, apparently.
Because the polls are ready, but our March Madness brackets are ready.
We haven't even told them what it is.
We haven't.
Nobody's heard.
We don't need to
unless you're in the Discord.
Yeah, join the Discord, figure out what it is. But we will be seeping out this week. Actually, by the time this episode airs, polls will already be live. Yep. But yeah, this one's exciting. We did March Madness last year to a decent success. It was definitely fun. It wasn't without its controversies and hardships. Doing the bracket polls today, I'm sorry, Chad, you have a lot of hard decisions right out the gate.
Yeah,
to make.
Very hard.
Yeah,
big sads.
But yeah, a little spoiler warning. Well, not really spoiler warning. The theme this year for March Madness, we're going to the video game realm, and we are doing console wars. So we're pitting Sony, Xbox, Nintendo, and PC against each other. Well, first against themselves, and then against each other to determine which console / company has the best exclusive game. So that should be really fun. We have some guest hosts coming on representing each region. Nick, he'll be representing PC. Your boy Chad down there, the biggest Sony fanboy I may have ever met, will be representing Sony. We have Anthony from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. He'll be representing Xbox, and Jared from Play Along Podcast will be representing Nintendo. Myself, Dad, and Kumino Dadan will be the judge panel. So
Nice.
we look forward to that. It's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited because I think the dude that's doing the Xbox thing was saying how hard it was to go up against all the PlayStation exclusives in the Discord, and I was like, oh yeah, got this in the bag already, bro.
Did you win last year? Is that how that went?
I did. I think I won last year.
Did you and I have to battle it out in the finals?
Yeah, we House of the Dragon won, right?
And Chernobyl, I believe, was.
Oh yeah, because I just couldn't argue for House of the Dragon to win.
Yeah.
So I kind of
So I got to defend my title.
I was one of those Republicans that voted Democrat all the time. But I'm also excited this year though. One for our guests, right? Our two guests that aren't on the show that are doing two of the divisions. But I'm also excited that Chad and I have two divisions, and our two divisions by chance are going up against each other in the semifinals. So we're not going to have it. There's no way we're going to have an all show boys.
Yep. Show boys versus guest finals should be interesting.
So I'm excited for that. Because I also just don't want to go up against Chad again at the very end.
Yes. All right. Yeah, be looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah. So that's come. Anyways, I don't think that there's anything else. Let's get to tonight's topic. So tonight's topic, and we've been kind of like all over the place this year. I feel like a lot of gaming, definitely a decent amount of shows, but I keep looking at the lineup and I feel like it's a good spread. So we are doing a little bit of a movie review this evening, and it's of not really newly released, but it's newer to streaming. So you can go out and stream this. It is on Apple Plus. And that is Killers of the Flower Moon, a Martin Scorsese movie. It's like, I think it's his 6th Leonardo DiCaprio film. It's his 10th Robert De Niro film. It is the last one with his 11-time composer. He passed away recently after this movie released. So another Scorsese big one. Also, it's like 3.5 hours long. This would be a good example of where I can just kind of say, hey, this should have been a series. And I think, Mike, you had said it was supposed to be a series initially.
Yeah, back when we used to do the newscast many, many moons ago, excuse me, we reported on Killers of the Flower Moon when it was first announced. And I really want to say, I think we even looked it up in Discord, but I can't remember because the movie did come out, released in theaters sometime in November. So it's been a minute since we were talking about it in Discord. But yeah, I believe it was originally supposed to be an Apple Plus series and then changed into a movie. And I have things to say about that stuff when we get to it. But yeah.
And Dad filled in. It was Robbie Robertson was the composer. Rest in peace. 11 times with Scorsese. That's quite a few times.
Yeah.
That's like John Williams and Star Wars tier production. But yeah, super long movie. It's not a typical Scorsese film by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely had the typical lineup of things. So before we get too deep into it, let's just kind of share our blanket thoughts. And as a high level, Killers of the Flower Moon is obviously, spoiler alerts will be coming because we're going to spoil this. So hopefully you've seen the movie. If not, watch it over the course of 6 days, then come back and watch this episode. But it is about 1920s Oklahoma, about the Osage Indians on the reservation. They struck oil. They retained the mineral rights to their lands. Smartly. Yes. They were of the few tribes to do this, but it brought with them a lot of heartache and pain as the white folk assimilated them, and in this case, very maliciously targeted them to take their head rights, their fortunes. So this follows a series of essentially unsolved murders, more or less. And I'll share more later about the way this was rewritten about 2 or 3 times till they got to this final script, which is very interesting. The rewrites that went through this, but before we get too far, what did you think about it, Chad?
Yeah, I liked it. It's definitely. I mean, I don't know that I'd put it in a top 5 Scorsese films of all time. But it's cool. I think as a period piece, it's really, really cool. There's just a lot of good, like almost Red Dead stuff going on throughout the entire movie. But yeah, aggressively long, bro. Aggressively long, like just too long. And we know that, like, I don't hate necessarily movies that are super long. There are some super long movies that I think could be longer, but then some of them that probably didn't need to be as long as they needed to be. This and The Irishman, he's just like trailing up with his times instead of like chopping them down a little bit. But it is interesting that it started out as a series because you like. So was there more here and they cut it? Because I can't imagine they cut anything because this movie's almost freaking 4 hours long, it seemed like. So yeah, I thought it was great. Robert De Niro remains one of the best actors of our time. I mean, he's phenomenal in this. Same with Leo. Leo's absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, that's my basic breakdown.
Man, I love Leo in this movie.
Yeah.
He's just like the biggest dope. I love him so much.
Yep.
But yeah, I think with this being based off of true events, makes it even more interesting. I, work in the oil and gas industry, so anytime that a property or IP ventures into that landscape, I'm interested usually. But yeah, it was just like really well acted. Very interesting story, very tragic story when you find out that it is based on actual events that happened. It's just like oil and gas gangster movie.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
is what it is. And in regards to length, obviously 3.5 hours, that's a massive runtime. In theaters, it didn't really feel that long. Like it didn't lose my attention that much. But I do have things to say on the length. And I don't know when you want to talk about that, if you want to do that now, or if you want to give your thoughts, Nick, or whatever. Whenever we revisit the length, I've got things to say.
All right, yeah. My thoughts on it are the pacing is interesting. For being a 3.5 hour movie, its pacing is quick because no scene lingers too long. We do a lot of scene jumping. No scene is like overly long. It's not like Inglourious Bastards where we have like a 10-minute dialogue scene, right?
All right.
So something about that made the pacing feel quick, but it was a 3-hour movie where it was like, okay, like how many scenes are we getting here about Molly and Ernest going back and forth in terms of like, do they love each other? So it's definitely an interesting movie to watch in that regard because you're like, good lord, it's 3.5 hours long, but like it's not slow by any means. And
No.
I've even seen some people make an argument that like it moves too fast, but it's like how does something move too fast when it's 3.5 hours long?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I feel like about Interstellar. I think Interstellar moves way too fast, and that movie's just as long, maybe. So I can definitely see why people would be that way. And you're right, it doesn't linger too long. And really, at the basis of it, it is what's the exact runtime? Like 3:26 or something like that.
I have 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5. It doesn't. You're right. It didn't feel like I was sitting there. Now in a theater, I might have been my bladder would have burst 42 times in the process of that movie. But there's a lot of good stuff that I like in this film, especially the ending, and we'll get to that later.
I loved it.
But I could have used maybe a little bit more mystery surrounding everything. Like I felt like it was kind of
on the nose,
predictable. Yeah, it was a little too predictable for me. I could have used a little bit more of a mystery element in there. But yeah, great acting from two of the greatest actors of our time currently. So It's always cool to see them act together, and they nailed it here. And De Niro, dude, like what range De Niro has, like it's phenomenal. And I would also like to count the amount of movies that someone is testifying against Robert De Niro's character in, because it seems like every movie he's in, somebody's testifying against him. So.
Yeah,
excuse me.
And I like that you said period piece, because I mean, it definitely the first half or first quarter, it's so long, but like it has a solid like setup of like the time, the period, and like the setting, which I thought was really awesome. And obviously, also having worked in the oil and gas industry, it's always just cool to see another like little carve out of the history there when it comes to all of that. Plus, it was, I thought they paid a lot of attention to detail when it came to the more you know, the more you pick up in that regard. But like in terms of like why they were all lining up to get paid, and like when they shout out the oil companies and all that kind of stuff, like that's how it works. Like you get paid based on your ownership and your royalties, and you have to go collect your check, especially back then. These days it's like they mail it to you, but you know, they had to show up. And interesting enough, for the natives, they were considered incompetent, and this is when Molly was like, you know, she was saying her name, incompetent. They had to have white representatives to collect their money through, because the Indians were considered incompetent. So all those little details I thought were great.
You know, I put a link in the episode description of some like a better explanation of the true story of, you know, what the book was based on and what the movie's based on, and essentially how the incompetency thing like came to be. The, you know, oil companies and like government, the white people that were seeing the natives with all this money were like, they don't understand like what they have right now. Like they don't know how to use this wealth. They're just kind of like, you know, probably living happily. let's declare them incompetent, make them have to have guardians, and then make us the guardians, and then make them have to pay us for being the guardians out of their money that we're saying they can't control. And it's wild.
I thought it was definitely a cool setup for the movie. And I like the way they show it in the beginning with Molly, because I think the first time we see her, she's like trying to get a loan for like $700 for like some medical procedure, correct? But then
she has diabetes.
Yeah, she has diabetes, but in the beginning of the movie, she gets like an abscess removed and she needs to pay a medical bill for like $700.
That's right.
So they set her up as like somebody that doesn't have any money, right? Because she's trying to get a $700 loan to pay a medical bill. But then almost the next scene, or the second scene after that, Robert De Niro's character is talking about how all these people have all this wealth. So I don't know. I really like the way that it was all set up there. And I mean, it made for an interesting open to the movie, because that had me intrigued from the get. I was like, what if she's so rich? It's like just her family's rich, or what's going on here? Her family can't give her $700 to pay her medical bill. Like she's got to go get a loan.
Yeah. And it had and that gave it a cool, you know, it's a real thing. And it really, you know, that, you know, it's based on real events, but it's just like a real example of kind of like almost reversed like stereotypes. Because typically you kind of like, it's funny though, because you have this tribe who is like abundantly wealthy, and they are all walking around town, driving around town, being driven around town as if they are like the most elite, like they have the nicest things. Meanwhile, there are all these white folk centered around them, serving them, kind of leeching off of them in a lot of regards, but also just like being, you know, the maids and like the cooks and like the housekeepers. And it kind of reminds me of like the idea of Inglorious Bastards, where you have a group of like elite Jews killing Nazis, right? So it's just like this weird like something you don't see every day, and you don't see the story told like this a lot. And I thought that was interesting and cool. So a fantastic like period piece, and of course Scorsese nails it on a ton of details, which was great. So
before we move too far ahead, though, Chad talked about the length, and I'll just get this out now. I'm in the camp of like the movie moved too fast, even though it's 3.5 hours long, and like it just didn't take advantage of the length. It left a lot of character development and like little side piece stories that were going on, like not fully fleshed out that you think would happen in a 3.5 hour movie.
Yeah.
I think after I originally saw it, I immediately thought was like exactly what Nick was saying before we started. Like this would make a perfect mini series, like 45-minute, 50-minute episodes. Slam it out, have like 5 or 6, so you could go a little more into detail on some of the characters, like especially in the last quarter of the movie or whatever, when Jesse Plemons comes, the FBI
Act
director
3.
guy, like first off, I love Jesse Plemons. Like that
Yep.
dude is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So I always want
Well,
to see more of him and stuff.
Well, that was fun though about the third act of the movie is we get Jesse Plemons, but then we also get Brendan Fraser.
And John Lithgow.
Yeah, like there was
Yeah.
just some great like third act actors just
Yeah.
like popping up, and I'm like, whoa.
Would have been cool to
Yeah.
get more of Brandon Fraser's character. Like
That all moved quick. That's where when it started moving real quick was
Right.
once the federal agents come in, everything
He
started
was
popping
like,
off
I'm running
very
out
quickly.
of time.
Yeah.
He's like, it can't be a 5-hour movie. They'll shoot me.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, this would have, I feel like, would have landed perfectly in a mini series. But I mean, it was a good movie. But
I think
perfect world, 6
I
episodes.
think what would
let's go.
serve why it would have served better as a series for sure is because the issue is the movie never lingers long enough on a scene or series of scenes to like connect all the dots for you like a series would.
Yeah.
Because like a series, nice thing about a series is like the episodes can, you know, that the episode is an episode for a reason, and like everything about it can be tied together as the episode. The issue with this is it just keeps moving, right? And unless you're paying attention, I feel like a lot of that contextual stuff that you have to be putting together kind of on the fly as you're watching, moving pretty quickly for a lot of different parts, is the only time like it really clicks. As like, okay, I get what they're doing still, and you have to really think about it as they're going through, which is cool and it's fun to do through the movie. But a lot of that I think is lost probably on a ton of people because there is so much contextual, historical, and even like just stringing together why these characters going back and forth about the things that they are. And like the whole like Blackie Thompson thing, like that character, and a lot of these side characters, keeping track of all that. So that would have done it better as a series for sure, to kind of like wrap up the themes it was hitting throughout.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think back to something else that Chad said earlier about it being kind of predictable and not much of like a mystery of what was happening. I think kind of that was the point. Like it's less of a who did it and more of a like why did they do this, and more of a like an exposure of the corruption and like expose on the evil white man, character. Because like you said, there is no mystery. The entire movie, they're telling you, like literally telling you what the plan is, what's going to happen. And so there's not a shred of mystery anywhere in the movie at all. But even with that, like I was still like on the edge of my seat, like even fully knowing like what side, like criminal act they were about to pull, like what these like hired henchmen are about to do. Like I'm still like, oh, this is crazy. Why the heck are they doing this? Like it's pretty messed up.
I think what makes that more palatable is that you're seeing it from both perspectives. You're seeing it from the perspective of the people that are setting up all this vile shit, and the perspective of the people that are the victims of it. So that makes it a little easier to hold on to a murder mystery with no mystery, basically. But I think that's why it lands a lot easier, just because you're seeing everybody's perspective, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So that actually plays well into the rewrites. So Scorsese had worked on the script for like 2 years, and then when he started shopping it to like DiCaprio kind of questioned him, and he was like, "Where's like the heart of the film at?" Like he was questioning like the way it was being written. So they kind of went back and forth, and ultimately, it originally was going to be more like DiCaprio was supposed to play Thomas White, the detective that rolls into town. He
Oh,
was supposed to
really?
play that character, and it was supposed to be about from the premise of the FBI at that time, the Bureau of Investigation shows up and starts investigating these murders. So I think in that light, it would have been more of a murder mystery type setup film.
Right.
And that is actually more in line with the book, the way the book is written. But through talking with the actors and like Scorsese, and then also the tribe people who worked with him on it, he ultimately pivoted to focus on the love story between Ernest and Molly, because even though all that shit did go down, people claim that they were actually in love and that Ernest was truly torn between his uncle and Molly. So the film became more about that. So that way it's more about the crimes that were being done from the perspective of the natives. And I think that's where it's more on the nose that like, oh yeah, this horrible stuff is happening, but it's almost like, is it really though? Like, is it this bad, and how do they get away with it, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And it's more so the shock that like something this apparent was just happening, and I think that's the angle of the movie. But it very much originally the book is, and the way he wrote it originally was more of a mystery, like a whodunit.
Yeah. So just in case there's somebody listening and they haven't watched the movie and they're still listening and we're like a half hour or however long we're into this episode, the whole thing that happens here in Osage country is you have the white people coming in and basically trying to marry into the Osage Nation people, or like befriending and like somehow getting into like an estate or situation where they can inherit the head rights from the Osage people. So when they do that, so in the case of Ernest here, he does that, and his uncle is just like killing all these Osage people to get the head rights to funnel into Molly, so that way when Molly dies, it funnels into Ernest. There was a series, big, like a lot of Osage get murdered, and then it trickles out into non-Osage people also getting murdered. And like all this stuff actually happened. It's wild. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like super tragic, like super, super tragic. And I think like the Molly and Ernest story is so good because, man, like every other scene, I'm like, yeah, Ernest actually, he really does like care about Molly. He really does love Molly. And then the very next scene,
you could tell that. Yeah.
He's like talking to Blackie
something
about murdering her sister.
Right. And
Right,
Robert
yep.
De Niro's talking him into doing something absolutely despicable to Molly and her family. And then the very next scene, he's taking care of Molly and they're like little kids are running around and he like looks like a family man, like he loves his wife. And then the very next scene, he's literally injecting poison into her veins. It's just like,
right.
And you said at the beginning where like I think you just call him like a dope or whatever. Like so, like he's a World War I veteran, was in the war, was in France. He comes back, and like goes to like his uncle where his brother's hanging around his uncle, and basically is just like, what can I do? How do I fit in here? Just
what's
he's
his uncle? I can't remember De Niro's name in this.
Hale.
That's right.
Hale.
They call him King. That's right.
They call him King. Yep.
William
And
King Hale.
he's like a big he owns like a ranch out here,
cattle
so
ranch.
he's doing well in Osage Nation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which had a lot of cattle on it, by the way.
Dude, so
almost
many
an
cows
absurd amount of cattle. Yeah. Yes.
Big cattle. And yeah, so I mean, but like I think he legitimately, from an honest place, just was coming back from the war and was just looking to find his way again and stuff. And he was just driving. He met this girl he liked.
Old school Uber.
And it was kind of convenient for his uncle to be like, oh, well, that works out. Here's what we need to do. And, being the dope kind of that he is, and, either scared or also idolizing his uncle, like just kind of does what his uncle tells him. But I think the things that De Niro gets into, and the insurance scamming, I thought was really interesting for like 1920s, because obviously insurance is like semi new. So maybe were they trying to say that like this was like a newer thing for like insurance scam being more organized crime? Because there was at least 5 insurance scams going on throughout this movie, which is quite a few. It's like one every episode that they highlight. So I thought that was cool. And then I liked how it evolved to the point of Hale, his uncle, getting kind of desperate. You could tell when he was getting desperate when he's like selling the cattle, burning down like the farm. I was kind of confused by that scene. But
I was confused about how casual they were about that scene. He's like,
were they just
took out a fire insurance on him last week? He's like, well,
it's like they were meeting up to talk with the FBI to like corroborate all their like research and like stories, but they also conveniently were just casually talking about all this while looking at his burning ranch. Probably more of an art piece there by Scorsese.
Oh yeah, dude, there were some amazing shots in this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's some fantastic frames for sure.
Yeah. So I did like the insurance scamming. That was cool. There's the car thing that Ernest did with Blackie.
I love how basically everything Ernest did, he tried to do something that Hale was doing, but it failed.
Yeah.
Yep. Tries to commit the Ernest or the insurance thing. Blackie gets arrested and he can't claim his car. He tried when he
that
tries
scene
to
was
get,
hilarious too.
What was the other goon's name? Or he gets him to kill the guy that Hale has the life insurance policy on. And he's like, make it look like a suicide. He just like shoots him in the back of the head.
Shoots him in the back of the head. Yeah.
Everything just was an absolute failure on Ernest, his end of the stick.
Yeah, and when King Hale was trying to keep that dude alive because he had an insurance policy out on him, like that whole bit was great because he was explaining all that. He was like, he needs to stay alive for like this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. Man, I just keep going back to Ernest because he is like basically like in Shane Gillis territory when it comes to like chromosomal makeup. So
nicked him.
Yeah,
he's in the war, man. Give him a break.
It was more than a nick. It was like a really sideswiped him. But yeah, it's just like every scene, and Leo, he just like acted it so brilliantly. Because I couldn't tell if he like was fully aware of like what he was getting into. Because some scenes while he's like, hatching plans with Blackie and stuff, it seems like he like knows what he's doing, but then like again he goes back to Molly and it's like he's fully in that world and like doesn't realize like what the other side of Leo is doing. It was really good. It's like really excellent character development and storytelling, honestly.
He kind of has a good soldier mentality because when his uncle tells him to go do something, he like completely flips that switch. Like when he goes and like tells the one dude to go find the older moonshiner, he was telling him to go find AC to blow up the house. And like he had no clue about like any of it really, but he was like just yelling at this dude to go find AC because King Hale said so and like do it now. He had no context of like much of anything. He didn't really know nothing. He just knew exactly what his uncle told him, and he was doing it.
Yep.
So he's really good at just turning on like what he was supposed to do. But beyond that, like there was nothing else in his brain about it. And that's where I think at the end of the day, he did whatever because it meant he could just still be with Molly, like whatever that meant. And I think that's how he was able to like just like robot around and be
good
like
soldiers follow orders.
Yeah,
very much.
It's best. Yeah, that's a good way to put it for sure.
So yeah, I mean, the length talked about. Plot was good. Period piece great. Now things that I did not like, even though they're peppered in there. At DiCaprio, great actor, fantastic, but he's drifting in this territory for me where it's like he's also just acting like the really good actor Leonardo DiCaprio. I get hints of that where it's kind of like just The Revenant. Like he got his Revenant pocket and he's just like turning that on a lot.
Yeah,
which I don't dislike, but
you have to expand on that. What do you mean?
So a lot of his mannerisms and like his general when he goes into like good actor mode, it's a lot of the same. Whereas like Tom Cruise goes in the Tom Cruise mode, and it's hard not to see Tom Cruise when Tom Cruise is being Tom Cruise in a movie. It's hard for me to see serious Leo just play serious Leo in a movie. And I just his mannerisms, like the way he kind of like looks away and like structures his mannerisms.
Does the literal emoji frown?
Right. Yeah. Like some of it just feels reused at times for me when it comes to Leo's more recent like serious roles, even though that's kind of all he does. Versus like go Chad.
Oh, you're gonna say versus like what? I was waiting for you to say versus
versus some of his like more mid-career like big roles, like The Departed, completely different like character completely. Whereas like these period piece DiCaprio actings are just starting to kind of group together to me at times.
Yeah, I mean he does even with
Wolf
the
of Wall
accent in the
Street.
movie. Yeah, Wolf of Wall Street. Even with the accent in this movie, which he does a really good job at. That's got to be hard. I don't care who you are to act in a different accent, dude. It's just got to be challenging. So you got to give him credit for that. But there is, I mean, it's just Leo, man. That's just how he's like that. Even if you look back at The Departed, even if you look back on the Titanic, he's still Leo. Like it's the same. It's just the way he is, and I love it. So every time I see him, I can't help but not love him on the screen every time he's on there. But damn, is he looking old, bro? Leo, you're getting old, brother. You are getting old.
He got that young
whippersnapper on the Titanic anymore. Yeah, he did get a little round. You're right.
Maybe it was for the role. I mean, he was playing kind of like a dopey World War II vet who probably took a couple shells to the head. Like, I mean, I don't expect him to be Einstein over here and like sharp as a whistle. He was just coming back to see what his brother was doing.
Yeah.
Hang out with his uncle. He was just trying to hang out in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
There was some money around.
They ended up just getting spanked by the, 32nd level Mason of the town.
Yeah. That's another thing. So like there was that. There was his gambling thing where because like there was a little bit there in the front where he loves money and he was just on these gambling stints. Like to me that was short-lived and not fully like built upon the whole like DiCaprio is like a high level ranking Mason and just spanks people in this very ornate room in the basement of who knows where in the town. That was just like kind of there and then it was gone.
He just sprinkles in like the secret religious cult just for like 5 minutes. Just so he can give DiCaprio a spanking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like they collected all these like details.
That's the only reason.
Yeah, they're
Good
like,
scene.
what would be
What
a
can I
great
do?
way that we can spank Leonardo DiCaprio? I got it. Robert De Niro is going to be a 32nd level Freemason.
Was
And
it 32nd level?
Yes.
Dang.
And
sounds made
he's
up,
going to
too.
have this weird room with a really big book and a checkerboard floor, and he's just going to spank him with a paddle. It's not going to be weird at all, guys. Don't worry.
The other thing I could have used more of was like his brother. His brother was always just there and around, and clearly like did the same like shady shit, but also seems like he didn't do a lot of shady shit.
Yeah. Also had more chromosomes, I think.
Yeah, that's the
For
thing.
sure,
Is
yeah.
like
Yeah.
there always seemed to be to me more about his brother than there was about him. But like we never got more than just his brother just kind of standing behind or driving his uncle.
Oh yeah,
So,
I mean, hey, you can't implicate yourself. That's what you got your
Yeah.
dopey brother for.
this is true. But then he ended up living with his brother, just like in a trailer park north of this, like where that all happened for the rest of their lives when he
Yeah.
got out of prison.
Yeah.
I'll
I don't know,
forever
man.
say like, no, go ahead, Chad. Yours is going to
go
be
for
more
it.
on
Yours is going to be way smarter. Nope, go for it.
Smarter.
way smarter, man.
Way smarter. I'm working on the accent thing. I'm trying to get a new accent in.
I love it. I was gonna derail the conversation, but we've already derailed it. So I was gonna say I always want more Jesse Plemons. Like that dude, man, he is such a phenomenal actor. I
agree, man.
Can't get enough of this guy.
Yeah.
And he was in this movie for like 10 minutes and it made me really sad because man,
That's what
he's
limited series. Give me like 3 hours of Jesse Plemons sprinkled across 6 episodes.
Yeah, he's definitely great. And I think he's starting to become maybe a staple for Scorsese because he was in The Irishman as well. He played Jimmy Hoffa's son, I believe, in The Irishman. So maybe we'll see more of him if Scorsese makes another film. Who knows?
Man, what was he was in a comedy, Jason Bateman, like a couple years ago. I think it was I want to say Date Night or something like that. And he plays like the weird, like borderline psychopathic neighbor that like lives alone and he's jaded because he never gets invited to these like board game date nights.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Game night.
That's what it is. Yeah. Oh, that movie's hilarious. He is hilarious in that movie.
Yeah.
He's spooky in that movie. Like,
oh my
gosh. if you want to see him in to be clear, none of you have watched any Black Mirror, correct?
I have.
Pepper of episodes.
Oh, you have? Have you watched his episode of Black Mirror?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Oh, dude, so good. That's probably my favorite role of his by far. He's such a creep in that
very,
episode.
Very creepy.
Nick, have you watched it?
No.
It's called the USS Callister. Go watch it.
It's good.
And I promise you.
What season?
It's got 3 or 4. Yeah,
something like that.
It's
hard to tell with that show because each season's like either 2 or 6 episodes. So it's like
I can just Google Jesse Plemons Black Mirror.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a Star Trek rip a little bit. It's really good, dude. You should definitely check it out. But yeah, he's great. He's great in that. He's great in Breaking Bad. Phenomenal in Breaking Bad. Even good in El Camino, even though he was way overweight for that movie.
That was a long time ago.
So
he was also
no. El Camino is the sequel to Breaking Bad. Is it El Camino? I think it's
El Camino is
that's
Clintwood.
the movie. No, what you're I think it's I don't know the title, but what you're talking about, Chad, I believe wasn't that the Netflix movie or something?
Yeah, El Camino. Yeah.
Oh.
He was also in, I think it was season 3 of Fargo or 2 season. He was in a season of Fargo and was also great in that show.
Yeah. I think
that's Fargo. That's a great show.
Well, I think he's phenomenal in Breaking Bad. I think his performance in El Camino is even more haunting than he is in Breaking Bad. It's just he's a creep, dude, and I love it. So yeah, great actor, and I'd love to see more of him. And I was really excited to see him in this movie. But you're right, we get very little.
You had to wait 3 hours, and then
3
you only got him
hours,
for like
yeah.
10 minutes.
Yep.
And then he's just the FBI guy that's investigating the thing that we all know about.
He has like a great line though, and he's like, "Here to ask you, about the murders going on." And Leo's like, "Yeah, what about them, or what are you gonna do, or whatever?" He's like, "To solve them."
Yeah, find out who's doing it. But yeah.
What kind of dumb question was that?
You don't seem too particularly interested in that part of the murders, but that's not suspicious.
Yeah.
Is solving them a problem, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could have used more Brendan Fraser being the lawyer, like just yelling in court,
Great.
because like he
Dude,
like
great.
first it was just like, oh look, is that Brendan Fraser? Oh my god, it's Brendan Fraser.
Like,
and then
it's like Brendan Fraser ate Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, and then he just
he must have still been like on the come down from
right
the
out
whale.
Of the whale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to watch that movie so bad, and we started at work the other day. And unfortunately, I'm a firefighter. I work with a lot of fragile masculinity dudes. So it opens with like a scene about him being gay. So it immediately got shut off. Like, oh my God, get this crap off the TV. That's I'm like, whatever, dude. Like,
struck to me.
I was actually really excited to watch it, but yeah.
Yeah, but I was expecting this like, ornate trial, right? But then Brendan Fraser just starts like screaming, and then it's over, and it's postponed till tomorrow, and we don't get any more trial. We get like one more trial scene that's half that long. But again, like wanting more, like that could have been an episode, right? Or at least half of an episode, but we all get cut short, and then we don't get him again until like the very awkward like party at King Hale's ranch that he's not there for, and everyone's just like, hey Ernest, you really shouldn't do this, and he's like, you know what, I agree, I shouldn't do this. And I thought that was weird though, that because the feds had him in custody, but then they just kind of like turned him over to get to the people that clearly were going to convince him that not to do the thing that they want. Like, why? I was so confused by that.
Yeah, I was very confused by the whole. I honestly thought it was like a flashback, because it's like 1 minute he's in prison, the next minute they don't even explain he's like talking to Molly, right? About how he's about to get arrested and all this crap.
I thought it was a meetup too. Yeah, he was just meeting up with his wife, but then he gets in the car and they leave. I'm like, Jesse, go get your boy. Like,
right,
you need him.
Yeah, so
they might kill him.
So I think there's. I mean, I don't really see any doubt throughout the movie that he did love Molly, and that the money thing was all for money. Like, he loved money and Molly maybe equally. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Do you get that vibe? I don't get the vibe that he was just there for the money exclusively.
Yeah. Well, like, because the conversation he and Molly have, like, right at the end of the movie, he seemed pretty emotional about everything that was going on.
Right.
I think, and I just don't think he had the brain power to like compute that what he was doing for the money was directly impacting and hurting Molly.
Yeah.
Just gonna casually help my uncle kill all of your family. But as long as you and I are together, and
we're cool.
We're cool. Like, I really think that's all he thought about, was just like, yeah, whatever, uncle, cool.
But then once his kid died, he's like, all right, snap back to reality. My uncle actually is a terrible person.
Yeah. It's I would love to know, like, how do they gate? Because, like, if you look at the box office numbers for this, it was on Apple TV. It launched on Apple TV when it went to the box office, I take it. Do they count Netflix numbers or Apple TV numbers in the box office?
So I didn't look on Apple TV when this came out. I went and saw it in theater. But I checked with another movie, Napoleon, that released in theater, but also on Apple. Napoleon, you had to buy or rent. It's not free yet. Okay. It will go free at some point. It just isn't free yet. And I wonder if Killers of the Flower Moon was a similar thing, where at first you had to buy or rent it if you wanted to watch it on Apple while it was in theaters. But then, like, Nick, you watched this for free on Apple, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
I did too. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if it's a
So-
similar situation or if Apple was even,
Because
charging anything for.
The box office numbers here are I mean, it's like a major flop.
So it cost 200 million to make. Box office worldwide was 150. It estimated needed like 500 to 600 to break even. Yikes. And Apple lost 20 million on it during its theatrical run until they made it back for home rentals. So they ended up making some money on it, but during its theatrical run, like it lost money.
Wow.
So
it's all
it
those
was
cows. It's all the cows, man. They should
they
have just
shouldn't
cut
have
those
had so
cow
many
numbers in half.
or maybe butcher them and sell some of the meat.
There you go. Yeah, that would get got some of your money back.
So was it free right away or was it?
No, you had to rent it.
Okay. So I kind of like that. I would never. Okay, so when I was looking at Napoleon, it's $20 to rent.
Ooh. During the theatrical.
Okay,
run,
are you sure that
now?
are you sure that it's renting though? Because I did that with Oppenheimer, was not available to rent on Apple. It was only available for $20 to purchase.
Yeah.
That might be what you're looking at.
There was another a kid, the Trolls World Tour movie. It was not on Apple, but when it was in theaters, to rent was $19 to rent. And I'm like, I wouldn't even pay this much money
to buy it.
Like, one, to buy it, but two, if I went to the theater and saw it, like, it wouldn't. Well, first, I wouldn't go to that movie, like, see that movie by myself. But
yeah.
Who would ever pay $19 to rent a movie for like 24 hours or whatever?
I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen that, to be honest with you, because when we were doing our year in review or whatever, our award show, I wanted to watch Oppenheimer. I wanted to make that was like this movie, I think, was the one for you that you wanted to watch before we did it, right? Mm-hmm. Oppenheimer was the one for me, and there was no rental option; it was only purchase, and I ended up buying it, and I'm glad I did. It's a great movie, but yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen a $20 rental.
Right. We're gonna have to get to the bottom of this, Dad. Do your thing there.
Yeah, and I saw Disney started doing that like very early on, but the weird thing was like you could buy it on the streaming platform early, right, during its theatrical run, but then it just turns around and becomes free later. So my question is, why would you buy a movie? Like, do you always need a subscription though to have access to that movie if you bought it?
No.
You know what I mean?
No, I don't think so.
I feel like they lock you out of it. Like, you can't just open Disney Plus to watch the one thing you bought that one time.
But Apple TV, when you're buying stuff on Apple TV, it's already an app in itself. So I don't think that it would lock you out. Yeah, I don't think it would lock you out.
It's just weird because it's like
it's not a discounted price either. If it was like a discounted price, if it was like, okay, if you have the subscription, you can pay $10 versus $20 for it, then maybe they lock you out. But you're still paying the full price that you would if you didn't have Apple Plus.
Yeah, but at that point, I'm just buying it like on like something I always have, like because I can get like a Google Play, buy a movie on there where it's just essentially renting them. But that I'll always have access to because I have a library of. It's not connected to like a streaming service.
What I'm saying though is Apple TV is Google Play.
Yeah, right.
Originally,
but like Disney Plus,
Disney Plus is different. Yeah.
Because I thought that was crazy.
Do that through like Amazon because it has.
Amazon's another good one because
they
have a
has
library.
Everything. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't pay that much money to rent. And like when it comes to watching stuff at home, movies, because you can't watch shows in theaters. But
oh yeah, you're right, Mike. To purchase Napoleon, it's $24.99. To rent it, it's $19.99. So there you go.
It's wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. Why would you not pay the $5 extra to just buy the damn movie if you're gonna that? That's their plan.
Sure. That's actually probably why they do the rent. Yeah. But I know Napoleon is going to be free soon.
Yeah.
I'm sad that I missed it in theaters, but I would not pay. I wouldn't even pay. I haven't bought a movie in a very long time. And when I did, it was from the exchange, like Blu-rays, shocking, right? If you know me. But yeah, paying more than it costs for me to go to the theater myself to watch on my like just TV and not get the like full massive screen, like surround sound, epic sound system experience. Oh, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I've literally I've never seen that until you said to look it up. So, but I mean, smart strategy, I guess, because the average person that really wants to watch that movie and doesn't want to go to the theater is going to look at that and say, "I'm just going to pay the extra $5 and buy it."
Yeah. And they got to make money.
They got to make their
box making the
stuff.
Money. So
yeah, right.
Clearly, they didn't make enough money on this one.
I wonder how this is probably a topic for a completely different episode, but all these streaming service like original movies, are they bringing in that many subscriptions to pay for the budgets for these movies? Are where are these companies recouping this money from?
Yeah, that's a great question.
They're not.
Yeah,
that's why they keep raising it, and also they keep canceling stuff. Like they had a huge expansion, and then they're just contracting until there's going to be like.
Yeah, I think they're throwing stuff up against the window and sees what sticks, and then everything else gets canceled. You know what I mean?
And I think
it's like Netflix did that for a while too.
Yeah, and I think the other hard thing is I think early on, a lot of the streaming services, it was all new, and they probably all weren't very smart about it. So they just threw a bunch of money at it, and they were like, okay, let's just kind of see how it works. And I think they weren't really prepared to like equate that to return on investment, because there's probably a lot of times where like, so, hey, I'm Mr. Netflix, we invested $5 last year in streaming content. What's my return? They're like, you know what? We're down in subscribers, but we raised subscriptions up a little bit, lost more subscribers. We'll get back to you on that.
I think the best strategy for them, and I don't know if they still do this. I know when Amazon first started with their original series, they would have like 4 or 5 shows that just had pilots, and then people would watch them. And I can't remember if you voted or they were watching the numbers on it, and then that's how Bosch eventually got picked up for a series. That would be the smart way to kind of save your money a little bit. Say, let's do a bunch of pilots and see what people think is popular, and then we'll build it off of that instead of building all these different shows and then we're going to cancel them after a season. I don't know if they still do that. Probably not, but
I still like have a hard time wrapping my brain around like free-to-play games, how like Riot is a multi-million-dollar company, but their game is free.
Transactions.
I know, but like, are people obviously, but like,
oh, dude, if we look at
paying
Fortnite,
$5 for that skin is sustaining these businesses.
Yeah, dude, I've probably spent more money on Fortnite in the past 2 years for Brady than I've spent on any video game. Probably combined over those 2 years.
Yeah, that's my tenure in League of Legends was not free. It was too much money. Actually, when you like price it out between like how long I played League and how much I didn't spend buying other games, it probably would have been the same as me buying other games during that time period. But yeah, I definitely gave Riot a nice sum of money.
I do think the trick that they all have to kind of eventually find is they all obviously have to have it has to be that thing that people are like, I need to have a subscription to this to have access to XYZ. Disney, I think, they have not seen the growth they expected to see, but we do know they have rock solid IPs that people subscribe purely for the sake of having access to Star Wars all the time. And they have a steady release of Star Wars content. Netflix, I think, has the harder job because they just make all kinds of crap that doesn't have any kind of like continuity
weight
to it
behind it. Yeah.
And I mean, like, really what they have is just like this endless library of shit to watch. And that works for some people. They're kind of like cable, like old school cable, where you can just flip through like 200 channels. And you're like, I'm gonna find something to watch.
Right.
That's where those people have gone.
Yeah. Yep.
So in like HBO, they've had it the longest. Like they have just rock solid series that just their people need access to as much
Yeah.
as possible.
Mhm.
So I think where some of them struggle is just like, how do we justify which content? Like we can't just keep throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. So they're all going to be a little different.
Yeah. And Disney kind of got I mean, they have the IPs behind them, right? So they've got Marvel, they've got everything, all the Disney stuff, they've got Star Wars. So they didn't really need to do that all that much. But these other ones that don't have, I mean, like Stranger Things is a prime example. Netflix makes Stranger Things and it becomes like a phenomenon. That's what everybody is trying to find. But I don't know.
But then they don't
really
have a season every year.
They don't, right? Yeah, and it's
But
not sustainable.
Stranger Things
over the
is
long
like
term.
so big that it's like involved in like all the products, like all the sponsorships, all the commercials, like that honestly probably is what's sustaining Netflix, let's be real.
But you'll have to look at how many original Netflix series were there before Stranger Things that did nothing. I know there was at least a few that I watched over the course before Stranger Things blew up. So it's a lot of wasted money that they're throwing out there, and that's what the other streaming services are trying to do. I think Amazon's got The Boys and Bosch and the spinoff for Bosch and whatever else Amazon has
for Netflix.
Yeah,
not to tell Netflix how to run their business, but like what they need to focus on is
the equivalent of no disrespect, but
I mean, what they need, their strategy needs to be have a decent stream of like must-watch things that are standalone, so people sub and then they stick around because it's cheap enough and there's enough shit on there to watch.
Right.
Whereas Disney, they didn't see the growth they were expecting because I'm sure they had really big eyeballs in terms of we're going to have this many subs. But listen, you have great IPs, but there's a finite amount of Marvel, Star Wars, and whatever other IPs they have fans of those things, and like people with kids that must have Disney Plus subscriptions. But there's only so many of those people in the world. They can't just keep racking up the sub numbers until they have everyone in the world.
And like when you're just slamming out the same IPs, like then you get burnout.
Yeah, for sure.
Like nobody cares about Marvel much anymore because they like drove that down our throats for like at first they had the nice like paced out release of like up to Infinity War, but then they're like literally a movie every month. Like
every month
you will eat this and you will like it, and then everyone threw up everywhere.
I'm actually. Did you guys watch the Deadpool trailer? I'm really excited for it because it looks like they're making fun of all of that. And he called himself Marvel Jesus in it, which I thought was hilarious. I can't wait. Yeah. So yeah, maybe he is the Marvel. That's what Marvel needs right now. Maybe that's what Disney needs.
I said in Discord, they need the TVA. Like everything related to the TVA is cool. Everything that doesn't touch on that meta right now of Marvel is just trash. Yeah. Some of it is probably okay, and people probably do like it. But as far as like what us people want from like Marvel to be this like expansive, connected like metaverse, it's not happening with like the series and stuff. Like they need to push this TVA thing because that's sticking. That to me rings Marvel. Like it's different, it's new, it's big, it's cool. Everything else is not.
Yeah. Let's bring this back around. I am excited. We're loosely bringing it back around. We'll make our way back to Killers, but now we're heading back to Apple. I'm just excited, Nick, that you're like discovering the goodness of Apple TV.
Oh, I knew it was out there. I was just waiting for a good reason.
You're partaking in the fruit.
Yeah, and no, it's a wealth of good stuff out there, for sure. And I mean, one of my favorite things of like a long time is on there right now, and
Masters
get
of
enough
the
of it.
Air.
We're gonna do 2 episodes
Them
on it.
Fly
Everyone.
Boys. Chad, you
Yeah.
need to watch this show.
Really? That good, huh?
It's sick.
Oh, it's so good.
I have like a slight.
I don't like episode 4, but it's so good.
I have a slight crush on the actor that's in it.
Yeah.
Dude,
Is he the one that played Elvis?
Elvis, that's that guy, whoever that guy is. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know his name either, but he's pretty sweet in this show.
Yeah, he's something. Huh.
little at the end of there.
He's going a little Brandon Fraser on us.
Yeah.
It's probably the time your firefighter friends would probably shut off our episode.
Yep, for sure they're out.
But yeah, Apple's. I mean, even like they've got great shows, but they're putting out some pretty good original movies too. I'm very excited to watch Napoleon once that goes free.
I didn't know that was an Apple TV thing, to be honest with you.
Very sad I missed that in theaters. But Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon. Are you kidding? It's gonna be great. It's gonna be so great. But yeah, Chad, you said something earlier. And like I don't know how much more we have left to really like break down of
we have to give our final Moon. We gotta give our final score.
Okay, perfect. Well then this fits perfect right here. My absolute favorite part of this movie was the very end. And it's not because we finally got to like the 250th minute of the movie and it was finally over, but the fact that basically the final scenes were like an old-timey live podcast telling the story of
so good, bro. That's so awesome. That is when I saw that, because that could have very easily have been black screen with text. So and so went to jail for this long. So and so did this. So and so did this with pictures of them. What every movie does. And this is really this is like a period piece partly. I mean, you couldn't do this in every single movie, but just the way they do it, it's so good, dude. It like keeps you engaged in the story instead of looking and reading at text.
Fun fact. According, if I'm remembering correctly from the video I watched that's linked in the episode description, the FBI would actually do that.
Oh,
like, put on those things to make money and to like put out like, look,
that's crazy.
The FBI is doing a good job, guys. Don't worry.
And so the sound effects were so good, dude.
Yes.
All the different sound effects.
They had like the product placement in it too, where it's like sponsored by Lucky cigarettes or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, and he lights up a Lucky cigarette. And, it was a perfect way to deliver the exposition that you need to end that movie, and the fact that Scorsese himself like does a reading
out and reads it,
super cool. Man, what a way to end the movie. I just like, as soon as that happened, like I was watching it with my father-in-law, he was in town during that time. I'm pretty sure he was like at his wit's end of like, I've been sitting here for way too long, like I'm ready to go. And like I imagine it being that Pedro Nick Cage gif where like he looks over like,
you're an idiot,
all disgruntled, and I'm just sitting there like, I love this part.
This made up for everything. This is why I came.
Oh man, it was beautiful. But I mean, did you get as much enjoyment out of the end as we did, Nick?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. That could have been longer, actually. They could have went on with that bit just a little longer, but it was good. And I think Scorsese being there really was that's just cool for him to do. I think because Scorsese is just the man behind the camera directing all these great films, but for him to kind of like step out in front of it in his career, I thought that was just a nice nod, homage, whatever you want to call that, to himself. I thought that was just cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's easily the most unique way of ending a movie I've ever seen. And there was another movie that did something similar, but not to the effect of that. And to go in line with, I guess, the sound effects that they were doing, I do have to point something else out. Their music back then was literally fucking blood curdling. Like, I don't understand how anybody listened to that shit and was like, yeah, just jamming with this. Like, what the, you know what I mean? It's awful. It was horrendous. Like, there were a couple times I had to turn it down. Like, it was like literally making the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Well, there were parts of where the music was like, I don't know if it was purposely abrasive, like whether it was like the native chants and like their music or just like the other scoring of it. I don't know if it's just like overly abrasive.
Hey man, the guy was apparently on death's bed when he composed this. Cut him a break.
Yeah,
I didn't, but like for me, I enjoy abrasive music, and especially when used artfully, like in like movies and stuff like that. And when it's like they did cool cuts where it was like hyper abrasive, and then it would do scene cut, dead silence. I think that stuff is cool. Yeah. But like I was watching him, and my wife, like, I couldn't believe like she even thought she would attempt to watch this movie. I thought it was so noble for her to be like, that seems like a movie I might watch with you. Yeah, hell no. She made it 3 minutes. I forgot 3 minutes. And she was on her phone then sleeping. But like she was, because I did watch this in 2 parts, 2 perfectly halved parts. Which hour and 45 minutes, perfect half, which is basically a full movie for me by a long stretch. But there are parts because she hates abrasive music, so we don't listen to a lot of overlapping music often. So there are parts like I could tell she's just like side-eyeing it from her phone, just like getting mildly annoyed with what was on the screen because I was waiting for like, can you turn that down? And I didn't get to turn it down.
I don't know. It literally sounded like people dragging knives across chalkboards and like metal rubbing on metal. That was their music. And it was just like the one point I literally had to turn it down because I was like, I don't even know what the hell's going on. Like, this music, this is not music, man. Like,
dude, when you go to watch Dune, just turn that thing up. If you have a bass device that makes extra bass, like a subwoofer, turn that all the way up and then turn off all the lights. It's like sensory deprivation chamber. Your brain will just like have this bass line and you're going the whole time.
That's why it took so long for Nick to watch it, because every time he did, he like was put to sleep by the constant hum of bass.
Yeah, do not be tired. Do not be tired. Be like very energetic for that movie.
I'm excited. I am excited to watch it because I love Timothy Chalamet. He plays the son in Uncharted. Why did I say Uncharted? The son in Interstellar. I'm just thinking about Tom DeLonge over here. Can't help it. I'm sorry. Dad got me going.
Oh, jeez.
So I'm confused on this Tom DeLonge thing. Is he a musician? Like, I can't find the actor.
Yeah, he's not an actor. He's a Blink-182 guitarist or vocalist. Or guitarist and vocalist.
Both,
then I have no idea what you guys are talking about in chat.
Yeah, apparently.
No, you don't. You can get the gist of it, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
More like you could get the gist of it, Chad.
Oh man. So final reviews. Or final how do you want to do this? Because last time, Nick, you and I did this on a movie. We totally botched it. So can you lay out the ground rules, please?
All right. We're scoring out of 10. And would you recommend it?
So we're not doing the letter grade this time.
No letter grade.
Okay.
This is not what was Rebel Moon. Not this one. Not Flower Moon, Rebel Moon. Rebel Moon, okay. That's a grade scale.
All we do is remove movies with the word moon in the title, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
So yeah, out of 10, IMDb style. And then would you recommend it?
Nice. For context, Chad, when we did Rebel Moon, I gave it out of 10, and Nick's like, give it like a B+. What? Anyways, so good. What would you give it, Nick?
I give it 7 out of 10.
Oh, dude.
I would
Sorry.
not recommend it to. I would only recommend it to people who watch Scorsese films or are very interested in the subject matter. Like have literally read the book and or have read a full like synopsis of everything. Because there's no spoilers. Like you don't need like basically you know the whole story and still watch the movie. So if you're not in one of those groups, don't watch it. I do recommend it for Scorsese fans because he's kind of like a novelty in himself to watch his movies. So
Yeah. Okay, Chad.
it's kind of low for a Scorsese film because most Scorsese films for me score like 8, 9, 10s. So pretty low on the Scorsese ranking.
So yeah, he literally took virtually every point that I had right out of my mouth. I was also I wrote down 7
Nice.
for my score before you said it, so I did it first. Yeah,
we'll
I think
date it.
Carbon date, yeah, we can carbon date it just to be sure. I think it's a good film. I don't know that I would even recommend it to Scorsese fans just because it's such a radical departure from previous Scorsese films. But I definitely would recommend it if you like DiCaprio, because I think he's great in it. Sure. If you like De Niro, he's phenomenal in it. And then certainly if you're into any kind of cowboy, Wild West, any of that stuff,
rigs.
It's towing the line there. Yeah, it's towing the line there as far as the time. But it's very close, especially in the first half of the movie. So I definitely would recommend it. But I would probably say you almost certainly should watch it in some sort of episodic format if you're going to go watch it. That's just me.
That's a good point.
I agree with that.
Period piece, like Oil Rig Oklahoma, if you're really into that, watch it. And if you like both De Niro and DiCaprio and Scorsese, if you like all 3 of those, watch it.
Yeah.
If you're missing one, don't even bother.
Yep.
Yeah. I was thinking like a 7.5, and I give it that extra like half. Due to some of the, I guess, like artsy things. Like there were a lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of great shots, a lot of great frames of cool like scene transitions, cool use of like grainy old-timey film looking stuff, the old school pictures of some of the Osage, things like that. The fact that it's based off of real life events is always a big plus for me. And like Chad said, the acting is great, even from some of the supporting cast. Molly, I forget, I don't know her name. She was amazing. Jesse Plemons, obviously, Brendan Fraser, obviously. It was, phenomenally acted. The exposition bit at the end was amazing, but that, falls into the more like artsy stuff. I would say if you're coming into this thinking, like seeing a trailer or hearing, the short synopsis and you're like a true crime fan, probably wouldn't like it because like Chad said earlier, there's no mystery. Everything is placed right out in front of you the entire time. Lily Gladstone is the lovely lady who played Molly. Thanks, Dad. So yeah, it doesn't quite like hit the 8, 9, 10s because I think the length,
dense,
while it's super long, like also falls in that not quite long enough range. There's some stuff that is very underdeveloped even at that runtime, which sounds very odd. And yeah, if it's a very niche like target audience.
Yeah.
And it's gonna miss for some people.
And to your artsy point, Scorsese did cite Ari Aster, who did Midsummer and Beau is Afraid, as inspirations for the way he did this film. So
I could see that now that you say that. Midsummer yeah, there's a lot of similarities in some of the like things they lay out in front of you visually. Ari Aster does a really great job with that for sure.
I think I might have solved our series thing that we were remembering.
Yes,
it was not this movie. Scorsese and DiCaprio were working on a series for Hulu called The Devil in the White City about Dr. H.H. Holmes. I think that's probably what got mixed up here. So I don't know that this was ever a series. I think that's, now that I'm reading it, I think that's what I remember reading on the newscast.
Well, it should be the first time I'm accused of that, Nick. So,
boo. Fun fact: Jack White played the radio show actor. Said Dad from behind the scenes.
There you go. White Stripes.
Boom, bow, bang.
Yeah,
that wraps it.
Pretty consistent rating there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Someone could have came in and was like, "It's a 10. It's the greatest movie ever." No, it's not a horrible movie either.
Not today.
It's a film. It's a film from a great filmographer, from a great director. That's the thing. And then it's also a great exposition piece for the actors acting in it. So it's very much, it's an art piece to that. So like if you're looking to get like entertained, I wouldn't quite say it was entertaining. It didn't have even like a lot of the entertaining bits that like the gangster films he typically makes has, because that's the other thing is like most of the time, like Scorsese films, very quotable, very memorable. And like usually they like kind of put a notch in my brain in terms of like rewiring some things about it. This like did nothing for me like as a person, but like was
it's funny you say that though, because I towards the end of the movie, it does seem like in every movie DiCaprio has one of his like moments. Like there's always a moment you can go back to, whether it's his entire role in Django, basically, which is a brief part of the movie, or, you know, the rooftop scene in The Departed, or for me personally, the crawl to the Lamborghini in Wolf of Wall Street. I think he should have won an award just for that scene alone. Is hilarious. And that there wasn't really one here for him. There wasn't like an outstanding moment from DiCaprio. Like
just all those facial expressions.
Yeah.
I guess the closest person to like having any of those moments was De Niro, just because of his character and like just the goony stuff that guy was up to. Like there were some good bits there, mostly around the boring topic of insurance fraud. You know, that's what really takes away from it too. So if the most exciting thing about your movie is bits and scenes about insurance fraud, probably not. Like
might have a problem.
It's not Infinity War. Sorry.
Very, very targeted audience for sure. All right. Well, there you have it.
Boom.
How you want to wrap this up?
Man, you know, we should just kind of like ramble on for another 10 minutes so Dad can have a closing fodder to like edit up, or we can just like cut it right here and say thanks for tuning in. It was a great episode. See you next week. Get ready for March Madness. Subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe on YouTube. But yeah, I'm excited for March Madness.
Go follow us on Rumble. Be cool.
Yeah, follow us on Rumble. We post stuff there sometimes. Mostly Pokeboy stuff, because Mike just somehow has like an infinite like well of Pokeboy content that I'm not aware of, but I see it go up there all the time. I'm like, good Lord.
So, you know, I work from my personal PC here, so it's a great thing to do while I'm spreadsheeting, just upload content. So I went through our 3 seasons of Pokeboys, and we have an episode scheduled to release every Friday on Rumble until like basically May.
Nice.
And
it's ridiculous.
It's been mentioned before, we do have an OLED Switch that we're going to be giving away, and we might be giving it away sooner than you think.
Yeah.
Could be. Might be. More to come on that. Tune in during March Madness. You may find out. But with that, have a great evening. Dad waves from the background. No one can see him. Look, it's Dad.
Dude, his freaking reaction to my comment, man. I was trying so hard not to burst into laughter. So I just saw your reaction down there.
I couldn't. I wasn't even trying to contain it.
Yeah.
No one could see me. I wasn't derailing anything.
Right.
So. Good stuff, guys.
Yeah.
Good times at Somewhere High, whatever that show was, movie.
Ridgemont High.
Ridgemont High? Belmont High? I want to say Belmont High.
It's Ridgemont.
Okay,
man.
well, I'll end the recording unless Dad has something really funny to say.
Nope.